So let's start by setting the scene. I'd like to start with asking each of our panel if you can tell us what you think the link between gender and poverty is. So firstly, I'll go to Monica.
Thank you. Hello to all. Thank you for the space to tell what is happening in our countries from practical action. For us, the main point is the difference. Those are linking gender and poverty, and this can be measured if we talk about intersectionality analysis. Let's say that those are the different lenses that allow us to understand different layers of marginalization that can be present at the same time. And these layers are historical, and each day can be reinforced. So in real life, it can be seen as, for example, a woman that is indigenous, at the same time a single mom, and also young people, for example. So for us, the link between gender and poverty is structural. Our gender is not just the result of poverty, but is one of the main drivers. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Yeah, intersectionality is important to all of our work and everything that we do. So yeah, handing over to now to Shivangi.
Thank you, Emily. Hi, everyone. So all of our discussion on gender and poverty, I was just reflecting back on my own experiences. And I remember when I was in college, my father took me outside of Kathmandu to buy a small piece of land, and he was buying it in my name. And later I realized that whenever like a woman buys land in her own name, you get like significant registration fee discounts. And beyond land ownership, like even for women-owned businesses, there are many tax rebates. Now, why such provisions are prevalent in Nepal? To understand that, you can see the results of a recent survey that was done 2 years ago, which showed that among sole ownership of land in Nepal, 75.8% are male-owned, while only 24.2% are female-owned. And it's not just about land or real estate ownership. If you look at labor force participation, for example, 52.7% constitute of male, while only 24.4% constitute for females. And males are also more likely to be paid employees, while females significantly overrepresent in unpaid family work. And I guess this is true for like women globally, but especially in South Asian families, a huge responsibility of domestic and emotional labor falls upon women, making their participation in economic or outside the home spheres particularly challenging. I want to put a disclaimer here that I come from a city and relatively privileged background of caste and class. So my family always emphasized on education for me from young age, which is not a reality for many women from other intersections, like Monica talked about. For me, once my undergraduate was done, there was a complete shift of conversation towards finding a good husband, finding a good family, and settling down. Building a professional life or career of women is simply not given the same weight. And one might argue that this is an individual pursuit, but I believe for women, success is often structurally and systemically denied, from within the home to frequently the workplace itself. And we often treat poverty as an economic issue and gender as a social one, but that distinction is false. When half the population is kept at the margins of economic life, poverty is not an accident. For women, the labor they perform at home is often invisible and uncompensated. The careers they are turned away from represent lost income and also lost independence. And it is a consequence of how we have organized gender. And until we recognize that gender norms are helping propagate poverty, I believe our solutions will remain incomplete.
Wow, thank you for sharing something so personal there. And I found that 75% of land being male owned is quite a shocking percentage. So yeah, really sets the scene about gender equality in Nepal. And yeah, like you said, poverty is not an accident. So yeah, looking forward to hearing some of our solutions today. So now I'd like to ask Mariette to also answer the same question. So what do you think the link between gender and poverty is?
Thank you. I'm Mariette from Rwanda. For us, we are working directly with refugees from the region, from Congo, from Burundi, from Southern Sudan and Ethiopia and Libya. So from those around 130,000 refugees, we have noticed that their society, their home countries, they live in gender inequality. So for us, we have noticed that they are systematically disempowered people, most of them, especially women. And those lack of power create direct pathway to poverty and injustice, not only for women, but also for the entire families, as women is key for the family. So most of those women really live in a fear of their partners. We find some women which cannot control their fertility, their ability to work. They cannot take key decisions for their livelihood and their family. And all of this create a challenge toward poverty, towards development, and create also injustice, even gender-based violence. Example of these people living within the camp, they get a kind of cash assistance. And among those who get cash assistance, they give it at household level, but women are only accepted. They are allowed to take those cash, but while alive at home, they cannot control, they cannot suggest, they cannot take any decision on how to use those cash received from different stakeholders. So for us, lack of power, lack of gender equality is a key, it's a pathway to poverty. So we can link that social norms and the lack of use of power, it's really key to poverty. So gender inequality for us, I'm talking from our experience, it's a symptom that poverty and injustice can take control over a population. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mariette. Yeah, I think what you speak to is kind of social norms and how important they are to consider. And that's something that Practical Action does in all the countries that we work in, because social norms are different in all the different contexts. We never take a one size fits all approach, and that's one of the things that I love about what we do. So yeah, what's standing out to me is that poverty isn't experienced equally. Women are facing multiple layers of disadvantage. So whether that's a limited access to education, an income, or even having the ability to have agency over their own lives. However, I hope everyone will agree that women don't want to be seen as damsels in distress. And when supported with the right tools, women are raring to go to make transformative change. So with that in mind, let's take a closer look at what this means in practice. So over to Shivangi first to speak to us in a bit more depth about Nepal.
So there are many challenges that women face in Nepal, but for this context and this presentation, I'd like to focus on my personal experiences and also of women I met in my field visits. Next. So I come from a family of 3 daughters, and growing up, me and my elder sisters always had a curfew time of 7 p.m. In my case, when I was in college, I started writing and performing poetry. So next, I had to attend events till like 10 to 11 p.m. So I had a friend then who used to tell me that, you have to train your parents. Of course, they're going to call you every time after 7 p.m., but you have to push the curfew time. They are scared for you as a single young woman, but you also need to assure them that you're going to be safe. So after a lot of negotiation, trust building, right now we are at a space when if I call my mother and say I'm going to be late home today, she will just go to sleep and leave the door open for me. So that's the state that we've reached right now. But I think in case of women in rural areas, the reason why their mobility is restricted is quite different. Next slide. So these pictures are from an agency-based empowerment training that we do with women, where we discuss gender, patriarchal norms, intersectionality, and other related things. But like I said before, as women are responsible for unpaid care work, sometimes their care work also tags along with them wherever they go. This was one of the participants of the training who couldn't leave her daughter behind home, so she had to bring her in with her. And this was a residential training of 3 days. And on the last day, the training ended around 5 p.m. And in the hall of around 30 women, only 3 women could stay back because they didn't have to go back home and cook dinner that night like all the other women. So when we work with women, we need to think about how we are facilitating their mobility, because when mobility is restricted, it does not just restrict freedom, it also restricts exposure and learning opportunities. Next. Also, gender norms shape what kind of jobs women do. Like I mentioned earlier, there's a huge gap between unpaid work and paid work. So even outside homes, there are certain roles men and women are expected to do. That means usually in technical fields, there are no to very low number of women. This was another training that we did for sellers and repair and technicians that we conducted, and we only had 2 women in a group of 20 men. Even though through the project we aim to develop women sellers, we couldn't do so because of their domestic responsibilities and limited mobility. Next slide. And another big challenge that comes is from huge migration of men from Nepal. As you can see in the chart, the number of men migrating is proportionally higher than the number of women migrating. And when men leave, women end up taking on additional responsibilities as de facto head of the house. Next slide. Along with taking care of the household chores and family, now women has to do the farm work, she has to run the business, and she also has to oversee all the responsibilities outside of the house. But even in such case, we realized that women are not able to take the decisions. Next slide. Let's say, for example, in case of Robina Deuba from Dorildura, who shared that she saw the benefits in using the improved cook stove, but she had to ask permission from her husband abroad before actually buying that cook stove. And I found it really ironical because it's the women, even though it's the women who run the kitchen, they cannot decide where and how to cook. And in most places where decision-making authority or leadership is required, it's often men who step up. So what are we doing to overcome these challenges? I want to briefly walk you through some stories. Next slide, please. Next slide. So Asmita is 20. When you look at Asmita, you think she's a young girl, but Asmita is married and she has a kid of around 5 years old. During our conversation, she mentioned how she was a bright student in her school who won debate and public speaking competitions, but she eloped at a young age. She couldn't continue her education, and after marriage, she was limited to household. When our financial education and digital literacy classes started in her village, she attended these classes. Along with her in-laws, she attended the household dialogue sessions during these classes. There, she could finally open up about her skill of making garlands out of flowers, which are used during our weddings. And her in-laws also realized that she had this potential and she could use this to earn more income. So after these classes, Asmita started working and making garlands again. And she sells them in her village and she earns more income. In future, she wants to enhance her skill by further learning more through the internet. Next slide. So now we look at the story of Usha, who is one of the classmates of Asmita, as you can see in the picture. So for Usha, she started thinking like, what is not available in my village right now, which I can grow and maybe earn more income. So in the same class, she had already learned about digital agricultural apps, which she could use for weather forecast and also for agricultural advice on like which crops to grow, how to harvest, how to grow, and all of that. So this led her to think that maybe I can start mushroom farming, and then she started. And when we last met her, she said that in the first batch she produced around 19 kgs of mushroom, from which she earned Nepali rupees 5,700, which is like 30 pounds. And in the second batch, she produced around 25 kgs, and she was now preparing for her third batch. Her story shows that how a simple access to a tool can bring big transformation in these women's lives. Next slide. Now, beyond these individual lives, let's take a closer look at the story of Pradesi Chaudhary from Dang, Nepal, who is the only woman in her village who does the manual labor of laying tiles in construction work. She formed a women's group from her class of women, and together they led construction of culvert, which is a physical infrastructure for managing runoff water in their village. So she shared how in the beginning she couldn't sleep at night because she had taken on this whole responsibility, and people in her village were very skeptical, claiming that a woman could not lead such responsibility. But she proved everyone wrong. She did it successfully, and now everyone looks up to her. Next slide. So, as we're talking about women who are challenging gender norms, learning new things, and improving their economic status, we also need to take a closer look at the role of men and wider communities in their lives. Because, like I mentioned earlier, this requires systemic changes more than individual efforts. Next slide. So I remember going to this class with my colleagues where we reached just in time as household dialogue session was in progress. So you can see husbands and wives sitting together and discussing about their family roles, responsibilities, income, expenses, and all the other things. Dhan Bahadur Kesi and his wife were also participants of the same class. Next slide. So Dhan Bahadur shared that earlier he used to think that he and his wife were putting equal effort in domestic works, but after making the 24-hour clock where they accounted for their daily share of work and rest, he realized that he spent more of his time outdoors playing carom with his friends while his wife worked for more hours getting up early at 4 a.m. And after realizing that, he was enthusiastic about sharing the workload and helping his wife get some more rest. Then we have the family, no, previous slide. Then there we also have the family portrait of Punakala and her family. And to understand the statement of Nimakanta, you have to understand the work that Punakala does as one of our women digital champions. So Punakala runs the classes that I described about before in her village, but her role is not just limited to her classroom. She goes beyond these classrooms to her participants' houses to talk to them about family responsibilities and sharing the workload. And she lives in a hilly region where if she has to walk from one participant's house to another, then the distance is easily like 1-2 hours walking distance. And there is no regular public transportation. And in addition to this, this is in a context where people are already skeptical about women getting out of the house, and even more of women digital champions who come to their house to discuss about gender rights. But Neem Kanta has always been supportive about Punakala's job, taking her to participants' house in his own motorbike. Men like Neem Kanta help their wives realize their full potential. And at last, I want to talk about Ward Chairperson Tila Kumari Uli, who is a local government representative, who also joined our classes when everyone around her started talking about these benefits. And along with her, her office colleagues also are participants of our classes. And they describe the work that we do as breath of fresh air, because unlike other organizations which repeatedly work on like agriculture, vegetable farming, and not in digital or financial technology, which they believe is of even more importance for rural smallholder farmers for whom access is of utmost importance. In practical action, we don't only work with women, we work with families and communities and everyone to create an enabling environment, because we truly believe that when women move freely, lead openly, and decide equally, whole communities rise. And now I want to give you all a glimpse of our work from the field and let one of our women digital champions speak about her work. Thank you all.
पुराना परम्परा सोचहरूले गर्दाखेरि महिलाहरू घरबाट बाहिर निस्किन नसक्ने अनि बुहारी मान्छे भएर बाहिरको काम गर्नुहुन्न है भन्ने यस्ता भावनाहरू बोकेर चाहिँ कतिपय महिलाहरूलाई चाहिँ घरभित्रै नै पीडित भएर बाहिर चाहिँ पोख्न सक्नु भएको हुन्न। त्यसमा चाहिँ उहाँहरूको परिवारमा कस्तो छ भनेर छलफल गर्ने अनि उहाँहरूसँग परिवारलाई बोलाउने अनि त्योमा चाहिँ हामीले कार्यबोझ विश्लेषणको पाठ गरिरहेको थियौँ उहाँहरूको परिवार सदस्यहरूलाई बोलाएर। अनि महिलाहरूले बिहान उठेदेखि साँझसम्म पुरुषले कति काम गर्नुहुन्छ र पुरुषले बिहान उठेदेखि साँझसम्म कति काम गर्नुहुन्छ भनेर चाहिँ हामीले 24 घन्टे घडी पनि बनाएको थियौँ।
अत्याधिक कामको बोझ महिलाको अनि पुरुषको थोरै र फेरि पुरुषको फेरि केमा अलिकति भूमिका देख्यो भने चाहिँ आय स्रोतमा आर्थिक रूपमा के भन्छ हाम्रो के भन्छ बढी भूमिका अनि अलिक त्यो आर्थिक नआउने अनि बढी झन्झटिला कामहरू के चाहिँ महिलाको उसमा रहेछ। तर पछाडि यो कक्षा लिइसकेपछि के भन्छ होइन महिला पुरुष भनेर बराबरी छ। महिलाले गर्न सक्ने काम पुरुषले पनि गर्दो रहेछ, पुरुषले गर्न सक्ने काम महिलाले पनि गर्दो रहेछ। अलिकति झै झगडा जस्तो बेमेल जस्तो हुन्थ्यो पहिला भने चाहिँ अहिले चाहिँ मिलेर काम गर्दाखेरि के गर्छ भने चाहिँ परिवारमा पनि एउटा खुसी जस्तो भनौँ राम्रो भएको छ।
Thank you. That was incredibly powerful, especially how Pradeshi was able to prove her whole community wrong and succeed in her new responsibility. And something that really struck me was how women have to ask their husbands for permission, even for things such as cook stoves, even when they're the main cook at home. But I really love how our projects have brought together women and their husbands, their parents, their in-laws, really starting to make that sustainable change, shifting behaviours and social norms. So thank you so much, Shivangi. So now we'll shift to the continent of Africa. In Rwanda, we see a slightly different context, including strong national progress on gender equality. But many challenges still remain at the community level. So over to you, Mariette.
Thank you so much. As I said, we are working in a different context, as we are working not only directly with Rwandan, but we are supporting refugees from the region, especially from Congo, from Sudan, from Ethiopia, from Libya, from Burundi. And from those different communities, we have noticed that gender equality has another connotation, has another meaning. So the reason why we, Practical Action, decided to engage to kind of discussion with our partners, as we don't want to mention the people we are working with. So from those communities, we noticed that most of them are gender blinded. So, and when I started to work with Practical Action, I noticed that there is a cases of GBV, even though there are other stakeholders within the camp who are supporting to deal with gender-based violence. We said that even though they are those stakeholders who are supporting a community, we also, as Practical Action, need to support the people we are working with to understand better how the access to energy cannot leave anyone behind. As I said, we are working with around 130, more than 130,000 people, refugees, and among them, more than 60% are women. And we have widowers, we have youth, we have teen mothers, we have different kind of people with disability. And all of these people need light, they need energy. We do our best to support them to access to energy, but also we support them to do agriculture. We have 2 projects of farming project. So we say that if we engage these people with gender-blinded mind, we will not arrive anywhere, as we want to really eradicate poverty, we really need to engage these people. Most of them are women. They don't understand that they are living in a gender-based violence. So we really need to change to support them to understand better what they are dealing with, how to challenge their social culture, how to really increase their income. We started by discussing about the challenge that women face in this context. As I said, we are supporting through energy access and the agriculture project. And the key challenge that we noticed are mainly based on social norms, how they understand how they live together. In those refugees culture, there is a kind of patriarchal structure which is persisting, despite from the support they get from different stakeholders. We still notice that there is a kind of patriarchal structure within the families. For instance, if a woman wants to start his or her business, she cannot find easily the capital, because most of the families, at the household level, men are the one who can take a decision about the use of income. So this prevent women to access to collateral to work with financial institutions. Next. How we try to overcome these challenges. As maybe my colleague Bertil will explain more, we have introduced a kind of platform which gather representative of a community, including men, women, youth, people with disability, to discuss together, it's a kind of mechanism to accelerate the energy access and to see how these people can work together and how to eradicate those harmful culture that prevent those people to reach to the opportunities that not only practical action offer, but also other stakeholders offers. I would like to invite my colleague Baltir to share how Gender Working Group, that group of community representative, work and what are the success we can find within that group.
Thank you, Mariette, for sharing our work and practical action. My name is Bertir. As my colleague mentioned, I'm the field coordinator in one bigger camp called Mahama. Mahama, which is in the East Province of Rwanda. If I give a frame of reference of our work, so we are supporting more than 100,000 refugees that are located in different refugee camps in Rwanda. We have Kiziba, Mugonga, Nyabiheke, Mahama, and Nyabiheke. And the bigger number of refugees we have are Congolese, which cover 60% of the total refugees. And the rest, it's around 38% of Burundians, and we have around 0.7% of other nationalities. As my colleague mentioned, we have people from refugees from South Sudan. So to understand that dynamic, so we asked ourselves, how can we understand the dynamic, their culture, their social norms? So we set a gender working group in the camp, and the gender working group is composed by refugees themselves. We call them now partners. We have elderly people, we have youth, we have couples, and we visit, we do family visit, we do door-to-door visit We want them to hear their voice. We want to hear their urgency and needs, so to better tell our interventions. And with these current crises that are happening worldwide, we observe that gender and poverty, where men, their needs is quite different from women, because for instance, women are caregivers. They are the ones who does the cooking. I remember when we started, there is a case we faced. We wanted to have a meeting together, both Sudanese males and Sudanese females, and they refused. They say women and men, they don't sit together. So you can't really support community without understanding their culture, their norms. And we said, oh, next time, so we have to put women's apart and male apart. So I remember my colleague Shuvangi mentioned that some women, they have to ask their husband if they have to buy the improved cook stove or the solar home system. It's a similar case whereby one story of a man who refused to buy a solar home system for their family. He's called Jean-Pierre. He said, I can't buy the solar home system. It's a waste of money. But the woman really wanted the solar home system. And after he realized that it has a radio, that's when he went to buy a solar home system, because it has a small radio. So understanding the need, the aspiration for both women and men, it's really necessary in the context we are working. While the woman Maria of Jean-Pierre was saying that I'm now skipping a meal. I can't cook in the night. So awareness campaign is important for when we want to do gender mainstreaming. It's really important in the community, understanding the context. As I said, it's really important, because practical action really support families, as my colleague mentioned. And I would close by saying how, when you support a mother especially in refugee camp, but also in the host community, you support the entire generation to come. We give the solar fridge, because in the camp where I am, it's very, very hot. And we saw that now women, they are blooming. It's really beautiful to see the change, observable change we are seeing in the community, how now children are able to get shoes to wear, because the mother is now entrepreneurs. So I will pause on that here, and please, Maria, over to you.
Mm. Thanks a lot, Bertil, for sharing this interesting experience from the refugee camp. So just to mention that, to add on what my colleague was saying, to mention that within that gender working group, we also included member of host community, as Rwanda is advanced toward gender equality. So we try our best to also to bring some members from host community to support, to light those members of refugee camp, so that they can work together in the journey of transformation. And this has really a good results from what we are doing. Next. As I said, from what we are doing, we support refugees to do agriculture. So we provide solar. We provide solar powered irrigation, and so that they can work. They are grouped in cooperatives from host and from refugee camp. So they are working together. They discuss about gender equality, how gender inequality harm the access to opportunity we offer. So from those cooperatives, we provide support so that they can get solar powered irrigation, and they are doing agribusiness. They're starting, but it's really successful for this time. We can say that gender equality not only support our stakeholder, our beneficial, our partners to understand, but also they take action. They start to work. Before, some of them they said that we cannot do agriculture because in my culture we are not they were not doing farming. So now they understand that everything they can do can support them to grow financially and to support their families. And now you can see those people who are farming and who are happy of the harvest. Next. Not only we are supporting them to do farming, but also to access to energy. Most of them, they are accessing energy, solar home system, they are lighting their house, but also we provide the street light, which allow most of members of refugee camp to do their business, smaller business, even during night, because the street is lighted, and they can do their businesses like selling food, selling their everyday needs, especially for women. You have considered a number of women who are integrating a smaller business, generating income because of street lights. Yeah, next. You can say that what is the role of men in this way of transformation? We are not only engaging women, but also we are engaging men. Among the gender working group, we have men, but also we are engaging community leaders. In a refugee camp, people are grouped in villages. So we have some leaders of those villages, men and women. So we are working with them. We are training them to understand better gender equality. And most of those men are gender champions. They are allies of women to challenge those harmful and rigid social norms. Also, those men champions are considered as role model within their community. They can support to deal with gender-based violence cases, but also they do a kind of sensitization in their villages so that people can understand better how energy access can help them to improve their lives, their everyday lives. But also men and women, men are trained to become solar energy technician, and also in some camps you can find couples, couple entrepreneurs who are supporting each other in their smaller businesses. Normally, before we started to engage them, men were considered as breadwinners, only that, and they cannot even support their wives during their pregnancies or when they have smaller babies. So now we can say that there is a big change because of this gender working group platform. It is supporting in all refugee camp where we are working, not only to support the community to access to energy solutions, but also to understand better how gender equality can support couples, can support in education of children, can support to increase the income, to access to financial to financially to increase their income. Next. I can close my presentation by repeating this saying: gender equality is more than a goal in itself. It is a precondition for meeting the challenge of reducing poverty and promoting sustainable development and building a good governance. I can testify this because if you support both men and women to understand how complementarity is necessary, is key, you can really overcome poverty and challenges related to the poverty. Next. As at practical action, we like to say that big change starts small, but with the couples we are working with our approach of engaging both men and women, we can also conclude by saying that big change starts with both of us, men and women. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mariette and Bertil. So actually, our work with refugees in Rwanda was one of the first projects that I learned about. It's what really sold me on the work that Practical Action does. I think something that people don't know is refugee camps. Obviously, a lot of people see them as temporary, but the World Bank thinks that the average time someone spends in a refugee camp is 17 years. So I love that we're doing this amazing work with people in refugees and making sure that they aren't left behind. And yeah, that we're not seeing them as in something temporary and really helping to change things now. And yeah, I absolutely love learning about the gender working group today. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I do just want to say, if you have any questions for our panel, please do start dropping those into the Q&A section, and we'll answer them at the end. So finally, we're going to head to Latin America now. And yeah, I'll pass over to Monica.
Thank you, Amelia, and thank you, Subangi and Mariette, for sharing that powerful and inspiring work you are doing. And as we already say, well, let's wait for the sharing, but let's already say that gender inequality is structural, as we all see by now. So I would like to talk from 3 points that are also common to all of our countries, and of course are essential for the women we work with, and not only for her, but to all their communities. So next, please. First, I would like to talk about what we call time poverty. That is the famous, and it shouldn't be that famous, but it is double burden approach or well, things that are happen that limits the time, especially of women, for example, to be paid and get unemployment, to have technical trainings, to have to participate at political levels. Not only we are not talking just about political spaces, but taking decisions and be part of the voices that are here in their communities. And also even to rest, that can be bad seen among the communities because they can be considered as lazy women. So in rural Bolivia, women work an average of 11 hours a day among the data we can get, but we are not agree with that. We think it's more than that. And this data is compared just to the 7 hours that men are working. Also, we think it's more, but the difference is that big. And this difference in a vulnerable situation represents a massive opportunity cost for women engaging to equal development processes. So next, please. Okay. Shubangi already mentioned this, and we are going to talk about land titles that usually are led by the heads of household, and this is something that culturally is assigned to men. I think in all around the world, well, mostly in the places we are working in. So, although collective titling has increased in Bolivia in the last 15 years, and women hold now nearly to 40% of the land titles, and that is great. But that percentage are often representing small and subsistence plots, or they are sharing their ownership with men, and they are still making decisions about that. So again, they should ask for permission to improve what to crop, to say where they want to expand. If they ask for a bank credit, because the bank also use it to ask them for their husband consent. And not related, but a big example of what is still happening. Even they have to ask for permission to use contraceptives, what can also be risky for them and end in a violence thing. So in the picture, many years ago, I was working, I was beginning, in fact, my working with practical action while I was doing a field work. I knew this girl, and she opened my eyes to the privileges that I already had at that time, and to the power of our contribution, the potentials we have. She told me that for her to hold a land, she had to marry a foreign man, so his father can allow him to inherit her family land. So otherwise, she wouldn't be able to live in that land, and she had to live with maybe a sibling of hers. With that project, she was leading local training it was about agroforestry. So she earned knowledge, capacity to assist and to be economically empowerment, and which I found that was a key to begin all the gender transformative process. So she could be able to say, I want to do this, or I want to invest in that. It was something very powerful to me. So the next one, please. It's almost about gender norms. As also was mentioned by Mariette, often women are excluded from the high-level decision making. Once I read in in a political gender-based violence research, that for each position that a woman reaches, men in Bolivia felt that they were losing theirs. So they felt it could be like 1-0 when it is really 1+1 in favor to their all families, to the communities, and so. And if can be worse, if next please, if you are young, if you are elderly, or if we see this with our intersectionality glasses, and this can affect, as we see in the picture, not just women, but also men. So next, please. In this picture, Roxana was elected as a vice president of an indigenous council, but at the beginning, she told us that she felt that she was there just for the picture, because she has to fill a space that was supposed to be for a woman. It was the access to this position, plus the different capacities, roles, opportunities, all the work we have done together that allow her to be prepared and to represent all her territory and national spaces, but also to become the first woman in a whole indigenous territory of being the responsible of disaster risk reduction. And this is not just for the Tacanas indigenous territory where she belongs to, but in a Bolivia level, because now she can inspire changes about disaster risk reduction to 36 indigenous nations. So from her powerful example, we are questioning ourselves if they are not part of the decision-making process, or there is a lack in their access to knowledge, how they can be climate resilience, how they can prosper and be sustainable, and therefore uncontradictory, how come their families can have better conditions. Please, the next slide. So we are working to change these systems. Next. To adapt to the change and to be prepared for shocks. So next, please. For practical action, gender equality and social inclusion is one of our work bases, especially if we talk about resilience. And we cannot talk about it if women livelihoods are invisible as it is her work, nor about adaptation if the knowledge doesn't reach to them. So as we believe in this, we work with different strategies according to the context and based on the cultural normative, of course, the people needs. Next, please. Our work has great experience about local-led solutions, young people monitoring environment and their territorial agreements. Next, please. Elderly people recognizing the role of young people during emergency. That is something that is new and also became from their experience and their decisions. As you see in the pictures, a woman leading entrepreneurships based on forests without deforestation. That is something very important for Bolivia, as we are losing big amount of forests these last years. And these women were showcased with international awards that contribute not only to their livelihoods, but only to a whole tourist destiny in Bolivia. And the innovation or this destiny is called the route of the Takana woman, if you want to research about that. So next, please. Also, we are talking about women reaching 80% of their territory, talking about early warning systems, about resilience, about risk management, through a top-to-down initiative that they call, because they decided that was the name they wanted to present. That is Epuna Ewestihu Kana. That means women that teach. So I'm going to talk about that in the next slide, please. This initiative that was born from the work with the indigenous authorities, the women indigenous authorities, was designed together, no? From a consensus job among their authorities, but also through the community. So from these 8 women, the 30 women we choose, or well, not we choose, but they decide to 8 women decide to lead and try to reach all their territory. So we are talking about more than 20 communities in a long and big space, where they almost all of them haven't gone out from their communities before. So, but they reach 80%, and together, based in their experience, in their knowledge, in their capacities, they reach almost 18 communities. So 680 people in those communities, mostly elderly, young people, and women, were really happy to participate in these spaces, and that were led by familiar faces, women that were talking in their own language and working together from their own experiences. So it was a great experience. And so next, please. I want to introduce Delmira. That is a young mother, also indigenous, it's woman. So now she is single. And some years ago when we met her, she was very shy, but very enthusiastic. So when we saw her in the training and then training to other people, we were very impressed, but also inspired of seeing not only her transformation, but her capacity to transform the realities of these communities. So next, please. All these women are contributing for their knowledge, their experience, they are investing time, they are investing resources because they invest time, they had to take other chances to get all her care working organized, and they are being recognized not only in their communities but also in other 18 communities. So they have, oh sorry, they have now um, to represent their communities. They are winning a space among those communities. People are listening to them, are taking care of what they are saying. They are asking for more methodologies like this, where people can be trained so they can train to other people, and then to have a different way of view and participate all together. So in these communities, before they got there, they didn't have the responsibility, mostly of in all of them, for disaster risk reduction. And after they and us working there, now they do. And this is an example that is advocating to be presented at national spaces, because it's the first one, as I said, from indigenous territories. So next, please. So for me to conclude, we are not talking about this to exclude other groups. We are all looking for more efficient and inclusive systems. When a man shares the care work, and you can see in the picture, he's investing in his family resilience while his wife is working in these workshops. When a community protects a woman asset, also they have to recognize that they are protecting their own future. When all of us understand that the time that women invest in capabilities and all the efforts that they are doing, um, this can represent that we all are investing in a more effective development, and this is affecting us too as people that work for practical action, because as we learn, as we listen, as we get inspired, we also are changing our lives. So things are changing. At Practical Action, gender equality and social inclusion is not a woman issues. It is a community strategy to reach systemic changes. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Monica. I'm feeling so inspired, especially by all the pictures and stories you've shared. And thank you for highlighting time inequality. It made me think of a phrase that we have, well, definitely in the UK, perhaps globally, that a woman's work has never done. And I think that stat that women in rural Bolivia are working 11 hours versus 6.8 really exemplified that. So as we come to the end of today's session, I just want to say a huge thank you to our speakers for sharing their experiences so openly, and all of you for being here. What we've heard today are stories of resilience, but also of possibility. When women have access to the right tools, resources, and support, they don't just improve their own lives, they transform entire communities. And that change is only possible because of our supporters like you who have joined us on the webinar today. So thank you for being on that journey with us. So we're slightly over time, but we will answer a question. So if you can stay on, please do. And if you can't, thank you so much. So the question that I have got here is, how does having children affect women's rights to work? So maybe I'll hand back over to Shivangi to answer that one first.
I mean, I don't have like first-hand experience of having children and how it affects, but I mean, I was just thinking about the women I was referring to back in my presentation, who when she had to attend the workshop, she had to bring her child. So I mean, listening to all the conversations of my colleagues and my relatives, I think it has a huge difference in how you work. And I think we were discussing it in our office also, like how much of a big role the workplace plays when supporting women when they have children. And I think it's very important that the workplace has the flexible policy and flexible working hours to accommodate that need. uh, yeah, I'd just like to add that and maybe pass it to Monica.
I have
Thank you.
something to say about this. Sorry, Monica, you can go on.
No, go ahead,
Okay.
then I.
Thank you for the question. I would like to share, based on the experience we are living with, women we are working with within the camp. So, producing children is not a sin. You have to produce children when you are a woman. But in our case, we are working with women with 12 children in, in a house of 9 square meter. And sometimes the woman, if you have to have children, I don't think you have time even for yourself, even to feed yourself. So you are just there to as caregiver. You are not living at all. Even for one child, you are not living, you are not breathing. So you are just taking care of those children. You can imagine in a refugee camp where you don't have even a space to breathe. It's a big area community with smaller houses. So even to find where to sleep, you cannot find enough space for those children. So not only it take your time, it take your life, but also you cannot find a way, a time to think about how to grow financially, how to make your life. We are not only on this world just to produce. We can also benefit from the things which are on this world. You can work, you can grow, you can contribute to a family. So based on the experience we have, refugees has tendency to produce more based on their social norms, their cultures, where they cannot decide how to plan their birth. So I think it's really necessary to think about how to control your fertility. It's really necessary to support women, to think, to go in deep, to take joint decision with their husband. Uh, yeah, they can also, if they have a means of raising those children, they can even decide how many children they really want. But many times you find a woman who lives lonely. The husband left because he said that I didn't ask you to produce additional children. They accuse their wives to produce more than what they pretended. But the problem, if you discuss with women, they say that, but I cannot even refuse to sleep with my husband because their culture dictate this. So for us, we notice that it's very, very relevant to discuss about the planning of producing children, planning family. It's really key for women to find also time for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariette. Monica, do you have something that you want to add?
Yeah, maybe I think that all is said, but maybe just to tell that from the experience that we have, a woman starts working at 4 a.m. when they have children because they have to make all the food for to all the food to feed them all the day. So they have to go to the productive activities after that, and then come back to continues with the care working. They wash the dishes, the clothes, and also like start doing homework with their child, and then go to sleep. So it becomes really difficult to them but as they have many, as just Mariette mentioned, 11, 12, because also they consider that this amount of children, when they grow up, they are going to support their family working in their lands. So it's difficult, and we have to take that into consideration when we are working with them. So we have some people very inspired in our team that got these nursery spaces, so they turn and take these turns to take care of for the children when we are delivering workshops, or to start working according their times. If they say we are going to start working at 8 p.m., so we are there in the communities working with them and doing whatever is needed so they can be included.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I've actually had one more question come in. So this one will be for Shivangi. So what difference have the recent elections, what difference are they likely to have in Nepal? I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
I mean, I think with recent election, there's certainly a lot of hope from the new leadership, because it's coming. This new, like, young leadership has come after a long period of old parties ruling. But I mean, I'm still skeptical, because obviously women directly elected in the parliament has increased. Like before, in 2022, it was, I think, around 5%, but now this time it's 8.5%. So 14 women have been directly elected in the parliament, but that number is still quite very low. And I mean, especially as the election come after the whole Gen Z protest, where there were a lot of like young indigenous activists and women also who were working to sort of change the leadership. So I think there's a lot of expectation from the leadership to include more of these voices, young, indigenous, and marginalized voices. But I'm not sure how they will do it in a systemic way, because I think, like we all talked about, it's a social structure, it's a systemic. It's so much inbuilt in through the whole system that, I mean, changing the whole system will require a lot of work. So yeah, I mean, we all have high hopes, but also with a lot of skepticism. I would say.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, so I think that we're about at time now. So I just want to say another massive thank you to our panel today. So Shivangi, Mariette, Bertil, and Monica, thank you for everything that you've shared. And a big thank you to all of our supporters that make this possible. And I'd just like to finish with something Shivangi shared earlier. When women move freely, lead openly, and decide equally, whole communities rise. So yeah, let's stick with that today. Have a great time, great the rest of the day, and then see you next time.